to run us through the fiscal policy that are relevant to import duty exemption management in the ministry. Import duty exemption and fiscal incentives are measures by government to incentivize and also to encourage the business sectors of the economy to grow in such a manner that some of the costs that are likely to increase their cost of production has been taken up by government in form of fiscal incentive. And this is done in a bid to encourage outfits in order to do their business better and in a profitable manner. That said, it is not all importation or all sector that are supported by this fiscal incentive. You all agree with me that there are several incentives of government, but we are just talking about import duty exemption as one of those many fiscal incentives that government is giving to encourage the business community. So that way we will proceed by looking at those sectors that are in or a business outfit to be eligible to benefit from some of these fiscal incentives. So like I said, we're narrowing down to import duty exemption, and we're looking at this.
Please, my apologies for the interruption. Mr. Frank will be connecting back soon. Thank you.
Sorry for the interruption, please. It was due to connectivity from the source I'm using. So like we're talking about the sectors quickly, we have the agri and agro-allied sector, which are into processing of agri products and also the, but what we're talking about when we're talking about generally import duty exemptions are machinery and equipment. Machinery and equipment that can be used in these sectors. You all know that some of those capital inputs are not manufactured in Nigeria. And so to that extent, we'll have to import them at a higher cost and at the prevailing exchange rate. So to that end, we see that as part of the cost that can be taken off the manufacturers or those who are doing business so as to bring down their cost of production. So majorly, the
Sorry, we apologize for the internet connection. He will be joining momentarily. Thank you.
This was sorry for yet another interruption. So as I was saying, we have agri sector, we have aviation sector, we also have automobile assembly, not the product, but the machinery and equipment for the assembling of automobile. Then we have iron and steel, machinery and equipment for the production of cold roll. Then we have power, machinery and equipment for the generation, transmission, and distribution of power. It could be in terms of thermal, hydro, solar, wind, and other renewable sources. So that is also covered. Then we have textile sector too, which we can also combine with manufacturing, manufacturing sector. Then we have security equipment, military hardware, arms and ammunition for military and paramilitary. Then we have international donor organization for an assistance for water, health, education, power, security, and social intervention. These are just some of the sectors that are covered by the import duty exemption. We'll be looking at the laws that give eligibility to some of these sectors. There are extant laws and policies that give eligibility to these sectors that we have mentioned. And yeah, so if we talk about airline registered in Nigeria, these are sectors that are eligible. It must be an airline that is registered in Nigeria, providing commercial services in Nigeria for them to be entitled to benefit from duty-free importation of the aircraft engine, and spare parts. And the extant law that speaks to this is Schedule 2, Item 1 of the Custom Excise Tariff Consolidation Act, Cap N449, Law of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004. And also the recent 2020 Finance Act also speaks about the import duty exemption for the aviation sector. So this is the extant law that gives credence to this category of importers. Then we have goods obtained free as technical assistance from donor, international body, or country. And this can be found in Schedule 2, Item 7 of the Custom Excise Tariff Consolidation Act, just like the one on aviation. Then we have life-saving appliances, Schedule 2, Item 9. We have military hardware and uniform. And when you say military hardware and uniform, we're talking about all hardware imported officially for use of Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Navy, or the Nigerian Air Force. Then it goes further to talk about accoutrements and uniform, the property of officers of the Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Navy, and the Nigerian Air Force, imported by such officers for their personal use on duty as required by the regulation of their respective services. So this is also in line with Schedule 2, Item 10 of the Custom Excise and Tariff Consolidation. Then we have arms and ammunition imported by the Nigerian Police Force, Nigerian Customs Service, and other paramilitary services, Schedule 2, Item 11. Then we have all machinery imported by industrial establishment engaged in exploration, re-injection, processing, power generation through the utilization of Nigerian gas for their operation. This is the one we call gas utilization incentive. This is contained in Part 1, Section 5 of the same Custom Excise Tariff Consolidation Act. These are extant laws and statutes that give credence to these import duty exemption. So all that we do is to process this application and requests based on the extant laws that has been established for their purpose. They also have plant machinery and equipment and material for use in the construction and incorporation of plant, jetty, shipping, transmission facilities, and all ancillary works operations by Nigerian LNG and its contractors and subcontractors. This is according to Section 7 of the Nigerian LNG Fiscal Incentive Guarantee and Assurance Act, CAP N87 LFN 2004. We also have equipment and material and supply for hospital use. And this is found in Section 20 of the National Hospital for Women and Children, Abuja Establishment Act, which give that privilege to National Hospital to be able to import equipment and material for their use free of duty. We also have plant, machinery and equipment and accessories imported specifically and exclusively for mining operations subject to approval of the Mines Inspectorate Department. And this is found in Section 25 of Nigeria Minerals and Mining Amendment Act 2007. So we proceed to Section 57 of the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority Establishment Act 2011, which allow the NSIA, the authority and the whole ownership subsidiary of wholly affiliates shall be exempt from the provisions of any and all taxes, fees, imports, and similar fiscal laws and regulations of the federal government, state government, federal capital territory, and on like that. So NSIA also has that privilege through the Establishment Act to import their equipment free of duty. Then we'll talk about machinery and equipment under some special sectors that have been recognized by government as priority sectors. And it says machinery and equipment of chapters 84, 85, and 90 of the Common External Tariff CET for the following sectors: agriculture, hospitality, cement, iron and steel, textile, manufacturing, and the like. Then even chapter 88 of aviation. So this is just telling us that there are some sectors, apart from the ones I've mentioned above, in line with their Establishment Act, and those that come under Schedule 2, either item 1 to 11. We also have some that are specially recognized sector like agriculture, power, iron and steel, manufacturing, aviation, but those importations are limited to machinery and equipment, number one. Then two, limited to items of chapter 84, 85, and 90. Meaning, if you belong to this sector, say power, and what you are importing does not fall under chapters 84, 85, and 90, you are not eligible for Idec for those items. Then if whatever you are importing cannot be defined as machinery and equipment, they also do not qualify for import duty exemption. Then we also have items, goods for water, health, urban renewal, agricultural projects, other priority projects where the contract agreement did not include the cost of import duty. These are what we refer to as state-assisted projects. Those state-assisted projects could be by World Bank or by any international organization that is providing those services, water, health, and other activities that are in support of some of the states and the programs of government. So to that, their importation under this are also eligible for import duty exemption. We also have a provision of a circular number GHQ/312/EM of 25th April 1994, which gave all government officers who spent at least 6 months abroad on official assignment and are eligible or entitled to concessionary rebate of 50% on one personal car. So duty are exempted up to 50% of one vehicle that they bring after the mission has been concluded. So we'll talk about the requirement for some of these importation or some of this eligibility. We'll talk about the requirement. What are the kind of documentation that we need to bring in order to make this possible? Then we're also looking at exemption from VAT. Apart from import duty, there could be exemption for VAT on account of importation of some of this machinery and equipment. And there is the first schedule to the VAT Act, Part 1, talks about goods exempt from VAT. So if we go through that, we have Part 1 of the first schedule talks about all medical and pharmaceutical products, basic food item, books and educational material, baby products, fertilizer locally produced, agricultural and veterinary medicine, farming machineries, and farming transportation equipment, plant and machinery and equipment purchased for utilization of gas in the downstream petroleum operation, tractors, plow, agricultural equipment and implements purchased for agricultural purpose, commercial aircraft engine, and commercial aircraft spare parts. So all of these items are exempt from payment of import duty, either whether they are produced here or they are imported into the country. So at the point of import, since we are talking about import duty exemption, they are eligible to be exempt from import VAT. Then we also have renewable energy equipment, military hardware, arms, ammunition, locally manufactured uniform by the armed forces, paramilitary and other security agencies of government in Nigeria. Then agricultural seed and seedling exempt from VAT, even though it's not applicable to import duty, but we're looking at the goods exempt from VAT here. We also have goods purchased for use in humanitarian donor-funded project as zero-rated item. These ones are not exempt, but they are zero-rated in nature, meaning that they have a zero rate of VAT when they are imported. So generally, what happens is these items are already listed in the VAT modification order. The detail of what is exempt from VAT, these are just general groupings of the items. When you say food items, what constitute food items? So the detail of what constitutes food items are listed in the VAT modification order 2021. So there you will see all items that are exempt from VAT nationally. You will see them listed there with their respective HS code in order to avoid ambiguity or to avoid confusion. So there's no varying from that. Any item you are importing that does not fall within those that are listed in the VAT modification order 2021 cannot be exempt from VAT. So that is about VAT. Now we're talking about how to go ahead to apply and to enjoy this import duty exemption. There are documentations that are required that applicants need to put in to be considered for these import duty exemption. And some of those requirements are, you must be a registered company with the CAC in Nigeria, doing business in Nigeria to be eligible for import duty exemption. That is the first thing we want to see. What's your status? Are you a registered company in Nigeria? You must be registered. Then you must also be tax compliant. You must have paid your taxes up to date for you to be eligible to file application. So if you don't have your up-to-date tax clearance certificate, you will not be able to proceed to enjoy this. Then also required is the pro forma invoice indicating the quantity, the valuation, and the description of the item you're bringing in. It's also important because we're talking about waiving of import duty. You first of all know what you are bringing before we can waive a certain duty in line with the ECOWAS a common external tariff duty rate applicable to them. So what it means is there must be a pro forma invoice that will be used in determining the quantity of what you are bringing in and the valuation of what you are bringing in. Then also require will be the bill of lading, which shows that those items are already consigned and that these are what are contained in that shipment. So where purchases have been made. Where it has not been made, because we want to take advantage of time, it's also permissible to do this without the bill of lading, but where you already made purchases, it's better to have your bill of lading. It gives more clarity to what you are bringing and the identification of what you are bringing. Then also very important is recommendation from relevant MDAs. All the sectors that we have mentioned have been designated to provide support or recommendation to every applicant. If you're coming under the power sector, you will get letter of support from Federal Ministry of Power. If you're coming under agri sector, you will get letter of support or recommendation letter from the Ministry of Agri and Food Security. Then ditto manufacturing. If you are into manufacturing and you are bringing machinery and equipment for manufacturing purposes, you must get letter of support or recommendation from the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade, and Investment. On and on and on like that, aviation, health, solid mineral, which goes to mines and steel development. So from mines and steel development, you get letter of support on anything that has to do with mining and solid mineral. So these are some of the requirements you should have. I've talked about CAC certification, tax clearance. I also talked about pro forma invoice because of the valuation. I've also talked about bill of lading if you have one. Then also very important is if you have your Form M already filled, it's also important to upload them because of the issue of HS code. To be able to properly identify the item you are bringing, I think we need to also note here that it is not the name you call your item that we may identify them to be. You may have a different name for them, but when it comes to the harmonized system code, it may have a different name. So for proper identification, you need to tie your items one by one into a proper identification code that will be understandable by everybody. The Nigerian Customs must understand it. Ministry of Finance must understand it. Everybody who has anything to do with importation and shipping and everything must have. So there's one common language we speak, which is the harmonized system code, which is required to identify your item. So there are some other, let's call these ones general conditions. There are some specific conditions that needs to be met by different categories of importers or beneficiary of import duty. Like if you belong to gas utilization, if you are an importer under gas utilization, we also require that you have gas sales and purchase agreement between the supplier and consumer. Why is this important? We want to know what you are bringing. You are going to be bringing equipment that will be used in for gas purpose in Nigeria. Whatever it is that you are bringing, we want to know the gas you are producing. You're going to be producing with those equipment. Who are going to be purchasing it from you, or who are you selling to? So if you don't have gas sales agreement, you must have purchase agreement with which you can go ahead and enjoy this. Then we also have contract agreement between the oil company, which will be supplying you the gas, or the contractor to the new project in the upstream. So what this is telling us is that you don't just approach us to say you want import duty on account of gas utilization. We want to see what you want to do with it. This is just to give us a clearer understanding that this isn't going to be abused. So we want to know your transaction with other third party that will be needed for us to know that you are in line with the government policy that you want to assess. So that's for gas utilization. Then, if it has to do with state-assisted projects, either by World Bank, by ADB, or by any of the multilateral institutions to assist states in the area of health, water, sanitation, agriculture, education, and the like, you need to give us an evidence of a signed loan agreement between the states in question and the multilateral institution that is supporting the project. If it's the World Bank, there must be a loan agreement that has been consummated, which will lead to you assessing this. We also want to have contract agreement between the state government and the contractor handling the project. If it's not going to be handled directly by the state government, which is usually the case, there will be a third-party contractor who will be handling the project. The kind of agreement you have with them will let us know whether that is whether you are on course or not. And the content of this agreement will go a long way to let us know whether there's going to be an abuse of the process or not. But where such agreements are not made available, we can't be sure whether it's going to be done in good faith or not. Then we also have some specific conditions relating to donor international organization. When you receive donation from donor international organizations, there are conditions under which you can receive those donations that will be qualified for duty exemption. There are ways you can receive donations that you will not be eligible to access import duty exemption. But if you want to enjoy import duty exemption on account of your donation, you must comply and conform with some of these conditions that are here. Non-governmental voluntary organization application must submit certificates obtained from the national planning arm of the National Ministry of Budget and National Planning. Now, they are the one who has the responsibility to register you for that purpose. So you must be identified by them. You must have some kind of certification from them. The copy of signed MOU for local NGO and cooperation agreement for international NGOs with the national planning. So the national planning also consummates what we call memorandum of understanding between local NGO and government to know your area of intervention and how you're going to be carrying out your activity. That's what will determine. If you don't have this kind of MOU, that kind of agreement with the government, you may not be able to. So we would like to see that before we can allow you to enjoy the fiscal incentive as far as import duty exemption is concerned. Then for the INGO, the international NGOs, they also are required to have what is regarded as cooperation agreement with the government of Nigeria. So if they are coming into Nigeria, upon their coming, they need to have some kind of cooperation agreement with the government, telling us their mission, what they are going to be doing, the area of intervention, and how they want their importation to be done. The government agreed to that, and that agreement is signed. It becomes an instrument through which you can be eligible for duty exemption. We also have copy of recipient registration as an NGO. That's why you are an NGO. It doesn't mean, even though you are not supposed to pay tax, they will still need you to be registered with the CAC as a non-profit organization in Nigeria. Until you are registered as a non-profit organization, you cannot access Idec. So you still have to proceed to CAC to register, though not as a limited liability company or PLC now, but you will register as non-profit organization. That way you can also be eligible. Then all requests for exemption in respect of drug, whether donated or otherwise, must be accompanied by certification of the Federal Ministry of Health regarding the safety of the usage in Nigeria. We will require Ministry of Health to also give most of these donations to, especially when it relates to drug and medicaments, they need to certify that they are safe for use. Despite their donations, we want to be sure of their safety for our people before we will do that. So we will never process such duty exemption requests unless we see a recommendation from Ministry of Health. So talking about 50% rebate for officers of the federal government that has gone on mission abroad in excess of 6 months, there are requirements for them to be able to assess that 50% rebate on a single vehicle, not more than one vehicle, is allowed for them to enjoy 50% rebate. The copy of their posting letter for the tour of duty abroad, we need to see. Copy of stamped passports of applicants. Your passport must be stamped both in and out. When you were leaving Nigeria, it is stamped. When you are coming back to Nigeria, finally, after your mission, it will also be stamped by immigration. Those stampings needs to be seen, and a copy of it needs to be made available to us for us to allow you. This is to enable us to know that you have fulfilled the condition of being in the mission from upward of 6 months. If you are not up to 6 months, you are not eligible. And it doesn't matter the length of time in as much as it's in the upward of 6 months. Then copy of the entry visa to show that the applicant was actually out of the country. Then evidence that the officer must have finally returned back to Nigeria. Like the second stamping must show that you have returned to Nigeria. You can't stay abroad and be applying for 50% rebate until you return to Nigeria and say, this is the vehicle I came back with. I've been using it over there. I brought it back to Nigeria. You'll be eligible for the 50% rebate. Then the invoice of that vehicle too is also very important. We need to see the invoice of the vehicle to know the valuation of it, because the waiver you'll be getting, the exemption you'll be getting will be in line with the invoice and in line with the duty rate that is applicable that you are supposed to pay. So these are some of the requirements, and these are some of the things that we need to note about the fiscal policy on duty exemption. But on the whole, I also want to let us know that Duty exemption has a lifespan of 1 year. And the moment you can also utilize them in a multiple way within that space of 1 year. So you are not compelled to use them at once. When you have it, until you draw down to the end of the value that you have there, you are still fine within 1 year. But if peradventure, after 1 year, you have not been able to finish utilizing the value that is on your Idec, then you can have a chance of doing one revalidation. The revalidation is to expand the lifespan of, is to extend the lifespan of the Idec you got the previous year for another 1 year. That is another, that's another information I would like us to know, but not more than 1 year. There will also be an occasion where, due to situation and circumstances, the Idec that has been given to you cannot be utilized, either on account of change in the parameters in terms of exchange rates, in terms of things that are no longer in line with the way it is. Then you can also have a chance of doing a recertification of your Idec. But this is dependent on the reason you are put forward, and that those reasons are genuine enough for that to be honored. If the ministry deem it fit that you have a genuine reason for you to go ahead and do recertification, either on account of exchange rates. Take, for instance, the exchange rate with which you got your Idec, it's like 700 naira per 700 naira to $1. And as at the time you're going to be utilizing, say sometimes later in the year, the exchange rate has grown to maybe about 1,000, say 1,000. Definitely by the time you get to Nigerian custom to utilize your Idec, there will be an additional taxes that will be raised for you on account of the exchange rate differential. So to that extent, we have also made provision for applicants to return back to us to do a recertification for them. But it is not something we want to frequently do, but we're just hoping that that should be a lifeline, so that we don't give you an Idec that eventually become useless in your hand, you cannot use, and it will assume as if you have not been helped by reason of that. So that is another thing. Then there has been the ministry circulars, about 2-3 ministry circulars in the past that have spoken about the guideline, which we need to also refer to. Some of these things I've said are contained in about 3 guidelines that have been sent in the circular by the ministry in the time past, which we can also leverage on to get further detail. Then even on the portal, on the Idec portal, which is www.idec.gov.ng, you can also have more information there. The guidelines, which I have just shared with us, are also there. Then you also have the user guide, which you can leverage on to get sufficient information about this. But one thing before I close is to let us know that duty exemption, fiscal incentive, they constitute tax expenditure to government. Government is not just waiving this for nothing. They are waiving it because they feel there are attendant benefits for the applicant or for Nigerians to get from them. So a case of abuse are not what the ministry wants to tolerate. And there are sanctions for any form of abuse that are found in the process. So if you obtain duty exemption from the ministry and you did not utilize it for the purpose for which it was meant for, definitely can be prosecuted. You can also be sanctioned. And these are things we need to know. So government is careful about duty exemption, is careful about the administration of its fiscal incentive, and to that extent, is careful about tax expenditure. You will also know in the public place that there has been discussions around tax expenditure of government going high and this, and there are measures being taken by the ministry, and there are several measures in order to curtail this or to limit the extent to which people abuse this fiscal incentive. And that is one of the reasons we have deployed this automated system. Prior to 2020, prior to April 1st, 2020, the administration or the processing of import duty was done manually. But from 1st of April 2020, the ministry has introduced this automated system, which has helped in so many ways. One of the ways that it has helped is that you no longer need to send letter to the Nigerian custom, and you have to follow up for many days before you can utilize an Idec that you got from the ministry. Now, by a single press of a button, your Idec is transmitted to all custom command, and it can be accessed there and then the same time it is transmitted. That is one of the biggest hurdles that has been cleared by this automation of the duty exemption. And even when it comes to utilization, it's now faster because the ministry system and the custom system are working, are shaking hands as we speak, and the interface that we have keep improving every day, such that the challenges we used to have in the past has reduced drastically due to the kind of interface that we have seamlessly shared. So to that extent, I'm not going to talk much on utilization. The convener of this webinar, they will be doing much more on the utilization at the other end and some of these other user-friendly features they have on their portal. So at this point, I want to thank everyone. While maybe later on there may be need for us to respond to some of the concerns which we have not covered, or some of those things that were said and we don't truly understand them properly the way they should be, then we will welcome your concerns and your questions, which we will give clarity to in due course. Thank you very much for those of us on the call.